Hey everybody, MSOM 601, final week, lesson 7 recap. Coming today from the rooftop at our place here in Seattle. I'm finally home for a week. I don't know if you can see, that's the city right there. There's the Space Needle right there. We live in a little Seattle community called Wallingford, and it's great to be home this week. I wanted to just give an overview, just sort of the class. And first of all, thank you all for your focus and attention over the last few weeks. Um, this is the favorite class that I teach by far. I helped develop this course, and I hope you were really engaged by Amina's story. When I was doing the curriculum design on this particular course, I asked the folks at Pearson to go out and find me a book that I could use and a story that I could use throughout the lifetime of the course, which is 7 weeks. And so rather than having a different story every week and have you try and apply it that would get you to be kind of an inch deep and a mile wide, I wanted one story that we could keep going back and forth to. And that's when they came up with Amina's story. And the first time that I read it, it really kind of gripped me on how problem solving and critical thinking will be used to save a young girl's life. And so I appreciate the comments that I've received from you all about that, and so thank you. Um, so the overall piece on this course, well, Lesson 7 is actually just sort of a recap of a lot of things going on. I wanted to get your personal opinions on how perhaps your critical thinking and problem solving has changed. It's kind of windy today. I hope this picks up. If not, I'll do it differently. But I was really interested to see how perhaps over the course of 6 or 7 weeks, which I know is kind of tough, that your critical thinking has changed. Many of you in your papers mentioned the critical thinking analysis and how impactful that was for you. I'm glad that's happened. Many of you talked about RED, or the is not model. Um, One of the things I did want to stress, I know I talked a lot about RED, and believe me, I really wasn't as much interested in you using RED as I was you using some sort of critical thinking problem solving process. I'm much more interested in the process than I am you using RED, so that whenever you're faced with something in business or in your personal and professional lives, that you follow some sort of thinking process where you gather facts, not opinions, and you go along down through that process. So that was really the intent there. It's not so much I wanted you to become a RED fanatic as much as I really wanted you to begin to follow the critical thinking, problem-solving process. This week we talked a little bit about worldview. Worldview is really important because worldview you hear a lot, particularly in church circles and Christian circles today. And worldview is really that lens through which you view the world. And much like your critical thinking style, worldview has a chance to significantly impact the way that you approach problems, the way that you deal with situations that come through in your life. And so, again, I'm not telling you to change your worldview or to do those things, because many times those are what they are. But what I am trying to communicate is that you need to recognize your worldview. You need to recognize that your worldview has a very important way of helping you look at things. And so sometimes it can help you, sometimes it can hinder you. But I don't want anyone to use their worldview as a crutch that says, I have a Christian worldview. That has a lot of definitions, by the way. But I have a Christian worldview, and therefore I will or will not do something else. Well, that's good, but also recognize that doesn't give you a free pass on critical thinking or problem solving. You still have to, and you still owe it to yourselves and to those around you, to think through those particular things as well. And then in the final part 3 this week, you talked about SMEs. Of your course project, you talked about SMEs, and you also talked about organizational impact and risk. And so just realize that anytime you have a problem-solving case or a problem-solving challenge ahead of you, there is risk, and you need to recognize that risk. Certainly not recognizing that risk can lead to a lot of different problems that you may face. So you may trade one problem for another problem. And also understand that anytime you make a decision as a manager, that impacts an organization. So it impacts you, it impacts the individuals that are part of that particular challenge, but it impacts the organization. Think about this for a second. Think about how the decisions that Kevin Gerard made early on to connect with Amina to try to get her to come to the United States, that had organizational implications. I mean, and you think about the organization being the U.S. military, think about the challenges that existed there. But also think about the challenges that existed with the Pastor Steve back in Nashville and all of those people. They had organizational impact as well. What if something went wrong? I mean, how could they get attached to that? So they had to make decisions. It's just not as easy as saying, yeah, I'll make that decision. So understand that all your decisions that you make in problem solving have implications. They have potentially positive implications, but those are all things that have to go into the decision mix as you get into problem solving. So I just want to tell you why I do these videos, and maybe you don't know this, and maybe I shouldn't share it. But in online classes, I know exactly what pages you view. I know how long you're there. I know what announcements you read and all of those things because it's online, and we have trackers for those things to understand where people spend their time, because what we try to do is try and find those things and try and improve them. If we have something that students just don't get engaged in, then chances are we need to do something different. And so, as I mentioned early on, I like to do announcements in the course, and one of the things that I used to do all the time was to give a lesson recap at the end, like I'm doing now on video. I used to do those in writing. And I found over time that sometimes less than half the students would actually view that announcement. And my theory was that the lesson's over and students are busy, and so therefore they're moving on to the next activity. But I really wanted to make sure that I had a chance to kind of help apply, to kind of put things out for students. And so I started doing these videos. This is the first time that I've done these. I started doing these in an attempt to get students, yourself, to watch them and to really understand kind of my thoughts on the lesson that we just completed. And so it's a problem-solving exercise, right? And so what I've done is gone back now, and it's actually been pretty successful. I'm finding that over 3/4 of the students are now looking at these, and probably more. I set them up this way and did them from different locations, sort of as a, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, or where is David this week type of deal, to at least create some degree of interest. So I'm probably going to continue these next sub-term. This is fall of 2014. Next sub-term, I've got a lot of traveling scheduled. So you'll be, if you're in the servant leadership course coming up, or in another one of my courses coming up, you will see some pretty exotic locations over the next sub-term. So I really appreciate your focus, your attention, your professionalism over the last few weeks. And grades will be in the grade book shortly, so make sure you take a look at those. And if there's ever anything that I can do to help you personally, professionally, academically, even after the class is over with, I would encourage you to give me a call, send me an email. I do want to make sure that we remain connected. So again, appreciate all of your focus, attention, and talk to you later. See you from Seattle.